TF2 has had LAN tournaments since the game's release back in 2007. In North America, ESEA hosted the season playoffs of the Invite season at their LAN venue 3 times a year. There was also GXL, among other events. In Europe, many countries boasted LAN tournaments for TF2, including Gamers Assembly in France and DreamHack in Sweden, to name but a few. The biggest was always the I-Series event in the UK, whose summer convention acted as the locale for the biggest TF2 tournament on the continent. Despite all of these online leagues and LAN tournaments, teams from opposing continents had never faced each other in an offline setting. This changed in 2012. Leading up to I-46, the Summer I-Series event in 2012, talks began in order to send over an American team to compete in the tournament. A fundraiser was set up in order to raise enough money to cover travel expenses, while popular NA caster Sal also provided a large cash injection to contribute. In the end, enough money was raised to send not one, but 2 North American teams. Classic Mix-Up, featuring the likes of TLR, Ruin and Harblu, and Leviathan Gaming, who boasted Banny, Clockwork and Shade amongst their ranks. They were expected to contest against European sides Epsilon Esports, considered the best team in European history, Team Infused and TCM Gaming. Not many knew what to expect from either side in the lead up to the tournament. The ongoing belief was that while North American players had the better deathmatch ability, European teams had the better strategies. In the end, it proved to be a whitewash. Mix-Up and LG reached the grand final to make it an all-NA affair. Mix-Up won an intensely close final, giving NA their first TF2 LAN victory away from American soil. From this year onwards, the I-Series event was seen as the so-called World Championships of TF2. Fast forward 12 months and a lot of planning had been put into place from many sides. The sole American side to appear at I-49 was High Rollers Gaming, the side led by Banny and featuring a lot of the LG side who had lost the final the year before. Europe had regrouped. Epsilon Esports brought in the likes of Mike and Numlocked to boost their chances. Also, another continent entered the fray. Australia sent over Team Immunity, a side who, much like Epsilon Esports, had dominated their regional leagues for quite some time. They shocked almost everyone by finishing second in the invite group, only losing to Epsilon in the process. However, their run ended in the lower bracket, netting them a 4th placed finish. HRG could only do one better, losing in the consolation final to finish 3rd. This resulted in an all-European final, as Epsilon Esports dropped their first map of the tournament to TCM, but regardless ended up taking their, and Europe's, first Intercontinental title. I-52 saw the most diverse teams at a LAN yet. Team Immunity continued to represent Australia for another bite at the cherry, while former champions Classic Mix-Up returned for an attempt at a 2nd title. Banny and Shade also attended under a 3rd different organisation, this time under the banner of Froyotech. From Europe, a number of top sides attended, including defending champions Epsilon Esports. The invite group saw Epsilon continue where they left off, winning every game, while Team Immunity repeated their I-49 feat of finishing 2nd in the table. However, as the knockout stage wore on, Immunity would see history repeat itself once more, with a 4th placed finish. A battle of former winners in the lower bracket saw Epsilon squeeze past Classic Mix-Up. However, they fell short of winning a 2nd successive title with a straight maps loss in the final to Froyotech, winning their first I-Series and North America's 2nd. The following year saw a lot of changes. Epsilon Esports and Team Immunity were no more, which saw no Australian side at LAN, and a power vacuum amongst the European teams. That was filled by Reason Gaming, led by Cadus, and featuring former EPSI players Mike and Nox, and Nerdrage, who had I-49 runners-up Rib and Zebasai in their ranks. Froyotech returned, and were joined from North America by Ascent. With all these new teams, the invite group didn't help to offer any sense of superiority. No team managed to win all their games, and all was to play for in the knockout stage. Nerdrage managed to win in the upper bracket final against defending champions Froyotech, while Ascent were knocked out into 4th place by Reason Gaming. An intense lower bracket final saw Froy squeeze past Reason and bounce back from a map down against Nerdrage to win their 2nd successive title, the first team to ever achieve this at an I-Series. America 3, Europe 1, and Australia 0. The lead up to I-58 provided more drama than all the previous LANs combined. Supposed online beef between Banny and Thalash, a player for Full Tilt, put the EU versus NA tensions on a knife edge. Also from Europe, Crowns Esports were formed from the remnants of Reason Gaming and had Cadus as their coach, a role not previously seen or allowed at LAN. Australia managed to send over a team again. This time it was Jasmine T, a side now dominating the continent since Immunity's departure. And they also dominated the opening of this LAN, going unbeaten in the group stage, taking the top seed for the playoffs. Double champions Frotech, aiming for a third successive title, struggled in fourth. However, in the knockout stages, Jasmine T suffered the same curse as their Australian brethren in years past, the fourth place curse. A lower bracket match between Full Tilt and Frotech saw Thalash and Bani go head to head, and it was the Dane who proved victorious, setting up another all-European final. It wasn't enough for a title though. Crowns Esports came back from 2 maps down to win the first I-Series Grand Final to go to all 5 maps. Up until this point, all Intercontinental LANs had been played in the UK, at the I-Series event. This changed in 2017, which provided 3 opportunities. At the start of the year, Rewind, a LAN held in California, saw the 3 continents go head to head once again. Jasmine T attended from Australia, while Seven, a new organisation made up from the Crowns Esports players, came from Europe. A number of American sides were in attendance, including Frotech and EVL Gaming. Jasmine T would make it 4 out of 4 for Australia. That is, finishing 4th at LAN for the 2nd time and their 4th time for the continent. Seven beat out EVL into 3rd place and played out an intense grand final against Frotech, which went to the full 5 maps. In the end, Frotech came out on top, winning the first Intercontinental LAN on American soil. Returning to I-Series action, we had an issue. Funds depleted from attending Rewind, Jasmine T turned down the opportunity to attend I-61. Former champions Frotech, thought to be a guaranteed attendee, also neglected to turn up. This meant that for the first time in 5 years, there were no non-European sides at an I-Series. Captain of Frotech, Bani, did attend however, and was part of the Swift roster, and allowed for some small EU vs NA banter. They made it to the grand final, but despite winning the first map, went down 3-1 to 7, now featuring Cadus back on demo. The real question is, does this count as an Intercontinental LAN just because Bani was on one of the teams? Probably not. Later that year saw the ESU Rumble, a LAN held in Sweden. Initially this was thought to be another intercontinental battle between Seven and Frotech, however few major sides attended. Seven and Swift turned down the opportunity, with the highest profile side from EU attending being Low Panda. Frotech made it all the way over from NA, wanting LAN practice for some of their new players. It was in fact Low Panda who topped the group stage, just dropping 2 rounds during a victory over Frotech. However, the Americans battled back in the knockout round, winning the grand final. Despite the lack of any major European sides, this must count towards an Intercontinental LAN title for North America. The start of 2018 saw Rewind return, and another chance for Europe to claim an away victory. Seven were the only team to travel from outside America, while the likes of Frotech, Ascent and Swift NA awaited them. Seven and Frotech both won their groups, leading many people's expectations to meet in the final. However, disaster struck for the Europeans. An apparent bad case of food poisoning from some local enchiladas bought during a break meant half of the 7 players struggled with sickness, with Soldier capturing suffering so much that he had to be subbed, with Permzilla entering the action. They wouldn't win another map, with Ascent knocking them into 3rd place before losing to Frotech in the final. So there you have it. Counting all of these, NA technically leads EU 6-2 in LAN tournaments. Some will argue that ESU doesn't count due to the lack of any major sides from EU. The I-61 was intercontinental because Bani participated, while others will say Rewind 2 was won by food poisoning. Nevertheless, focusing simply on I-Series tournaments that featured full teams from more than one continent, NA leads EU 3-2, with Australia yet to win one. Heading into I-63, merely weeks away, and both Seven and Frotech gearing up, this is an opportunity for one of these regions and teams to further imprint their mark and extend their legacy.